Hi there, this is Jennifer. Welcome to Crafting in Carrollville. I'm so glad y'all joined us this week. If you're new, thanks for finding us. If you're returning, I'm so glad you're watching. These are just a few of the materials we're going to be working with in today's projects. These are just some straight up upcycles with things that I bought from the bins. We'll start with this wood, what used to be a clock. I've replaced the hole that was there for the clock mechanism with a wooden slat, and I painted that wood slat white. And you might guess that I'm going to decoupage on that, and in order to get the very best results that way, I painted the face of it white. I'm just using these graphics that I printed out on rice paper right on my home printer. Anytime I'm going to decoupage using rice paper with graphics that I print out at home, I start by sealing it with hairspray. It's just a super simple way to seal your ink with something you probably already have on hand. So just goes to show that every room in our house contains craft supplies. Ain't that the truth? Okay, so I'm just using Mod Podge to decoupage this down, and I didn't really have a plan for necessarily how I was going to lay out these graphics. I just printed out everything that I thought I might use on one sheet of paper, and now I'm just tearing off different pieces and parts until I get the result that I want. So you could do this with a napkin, you could do this with regular pattern tissue paper that's already printed. You could print your own like I've done here. You could use transfers. There's so many different ways to get images that you want onto your surface. I like rice paper. I feel like it's a little bit thicker than the tissue paper that you would print on at home. And it also has a texture to it and sort of a variation in the paper. It's a handmade paper. I really enjoy it. And you could also, I could have measured this wood slat and laid it out exactly like I wanted it to look on my computer, and then printed it out in one piece and just decoupaged it on that way. But I was giving myself some wiggle room here because this project just totally evolved. I didn't know how I was going to work with this piece. So I wanted to give myself a lot of flexibility. I didn't know if I was going to continue the graphics onto the actual wood part of the piece or what I was going to do. This wood, when you saw my intro pictures, it was very shiny. It had like some terrible varnish on it, and I was able to sand that off. After I get my graphics decoupaged onto my face there, I let it dry, and then I come back in with my finger sander and I just gently sand those edges. That's how we do it. And now I'm going to paint the actual outside of the clock. I never know what color this is. I seem to use it a lot. It's sort of a buff color. It's a super great almost like ecru color. I like it because it doesn't have a lot of yellow. I just really appreciate that color. I do give this a couple coats. I want to start off with full coverage, but I am going to come back in and just kind of sand that and distress it back. I also want to put a frame on my picture there, so I don't know about y'all, but like I've noticed that resin has gone up at least $5 a box where I live, so I haven't bought any lately, so I'm using hot glue in my mold here. This is a mold that came from Hobby Lobby, their baking aisle. I want to put a frame around my birds there, but I really don't necessarily want to wait for resin to dry. I don't want to since I know this is all I'm making, I didn't even bother getting the resin out. Let's just put it that way. And I had my hot glue gun handy, so I just used hot glue. Really, there was no other reason than that. I could have used clay. I had that handy as well, but I didn't want to wait for clay to dry either. So this is what I did this time. That's always an option. And I'm just going to use my precision tip what's it called, Surebonder glue gun there to glue those castings right around that frame. I could have used the glue gun since I had it out, but I like the precision tip of the Surebonder. I'm just using Rub and Buff, Spanish Copper Rub and Buff to recolor that hardware there. And now I'm coming in with some paint that I've mixed. I've also added that Spanish Copper Rub and Buff to my frame, but now I want to patina those finishes. So I'm coming in with some colors that I think make good patina. And I've also used some texturing sand, and that's in the picture there. That's not actual texturing sand. That is wetting sand from the wetting aisle at Hobby Lobby. The way that you can make paint work for patina is you can put it on and then you can do what I'm doing here. I'm rubbing it back so that it gives it that cloudy look that patina has. And I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep adding layers of Rub and Buff and then some gold metallic paint and some things like that until this patina looks like I want it to look. And I think it turns out perfect every time when you do it this way. You'll get a better look at it at the end when I show you all of my projects. This is a wood cutting board that I picked up at the bins. All of my upcycling materials always come from the bins for the most part. I mixed up some paint here. I didn't want it totally jet black like the ink Waverly black is. I did mix in some gray as well so that it would be less black. And you'll notice I'm painting a grain sack stripe here, and it's not perfect. I do get one of the lines a little bit crooked, and normally I would have gone back and fixed it, but that I knew wasn't going to be an issue because I'm going to sand the heck out of this board. I'm going to distress it way back, and I'm going to distress those grain sack stripes way back as well. So in the end, you're not going to know whether it was straight or crooked or what it was. I'm just using masking tape to tape off my stripes. And I do come in and use my heat gun just so I can be a little more efficient in my work day here. I find myself using my heat gun a lot more than I used to. Ever since I started doing YouTube, it just seems like I need to go a little bit faster. And I'm just eyeing up these stripes. They don't have to be perfect because it's really, at the end of the day, it's just going to be the idea that they were there, because they're definitely not meant to be perfect. They're going to look perfect enough, and you will see that. They look pretty much exactly like I want them to look. Because I'm going to put something at the bottom of that cutting board anyway. So I basically just want them to be gone at that point. Like, I'm going to sand them down even further. This is my first round of sanding. I'm just using my handheld palm sander. My Ryobi palm sander. I'm going to clean that off because when you sand black paint, the black dust just sort of gets everywhere, and I don't want to get all ground into my paint, the actual paint that I painted the cutting board. I've sanded it again at this point, and you can see I took off a lot more paint. And now I'm going to use this IOD transfer right at the bottom of my board here after I get done wiping it off. And this is the rooster from the new spring release. Was it summer release? I don't know. Of IOD. It was the book with all the labels in it. I can't remember what it was called. But that's the rooster from that particular book. So I'm just going to center him over those grain sack stripes, and I don't get him quite in the center, and you're going to see how I deal with that as time goes on. Just using my favorite transfer tool. That's my multi-purpose tool from the Dollar Tree. I talk about that a lot. I like it because it has such a hard rubberized end that it doesn't bend at all, and then the other end has a little stylus, like a weeding tool almost, so you can use that to lift up the corner of your film as you rub. I'm just going to burnish that transfer on really well with the transfer film, and you can see I don't get it quite in the center, and that really bothers me. So I come back in and I put some words on the edge of my board there, And that really helps draw your eye back over there so you don't notice that he's not quite centered. This is a transfer that it works a little bit differently than rub-on transfers. It's actually a water transfer. It's not water slide paper. It's a water transfer. So it's printed backwards. I turn it upside down so that, it will transfer its mirror image. And then I wet it with water, plenty of water. And you can see when you've got enough water on it, it starts to slide like water slide paper. Also, I want you to notice that it has a shiny finish, so when I put it back down here, you're going to see that it has a shiny finish, but I fixed that. When you're transferring, decoupaging, so many of the things we do cause our surfaces to have different sheens on them, like different finishes, but that can all be fixed in editing. No, it can all be fixed with the right spray. I use a chalky matte finish clear spray to give all of my surfaces a uniform finish, and I've already done that, but here I am now. I'm applying wax to this board because that's just a necessary thing. I've used chalk paint and I want my work to be nice and sealed. I could have left it with just that matte spray on it, but I really love the way the wax feels. It just has a really nice tactile feeling. I like that. So this is just Waverly clear wax, and I wipe it on, then wipe it off. I use my sander to get rid of some black paint that didn't belong. So after I get that clear wax on, then I just buff it off. And you can see that that text just sort of draws your eye back over there so it doesn't get lost in the uncenteredness of my rooster. Things like that really bother me. I think the last step I'm going to do here on this board, I'm going to add a hanger to it, and that's just going to be a braided rope that I got from Amazon. I use this braided rope for a lot of different things, hangers. I made some pillows with it one day. I didn't do that on YouTube, and I should have because it was a really good project. Maybe I'll come back to that one time. Anyway, I promise you I'm getting my rope. I know exactly where it is. I can picture it. It's right perpendicular to my workbench here. So that's where I am. I know it. See, I'm not in the picture. No, see? I went and got my rope. It's already braided. I like that. It's just a neat little finishing touch is to add a hanger, and I'm going to let the ends stay frayed there. So I'm just going to tie it really good, and I'm just going to let those ends fray out. I think that's really pretty. I think it really finishes that really well. And this is such a simple project, but really I think it's super pretty. Next, we're going to work on that picture that I showed you at the beginning, and I've painted that the same color as the cutting board. That was a dried sage color from Dixie Belle. And I'm going to do the same thing here to add one little embellishment to this picture. I'm going to add this braided mold to the handle. And it's exactly the right width to fit in that groove there. You see how the handle has those rolled edges? This is just wide enough to fit in between those rolled edges. So because that's all the molds I want to pour, I'm just going to use hot glue again. I didn't think there was any point in getting out resin just to pour these few things. And I had my hot glue gun real handy, and I'm just going to use, again, my Surebonder precision tip glue gun to glue that casting down to the handle. This is just going to add just one simple embellishment to this picture before I put transfers on here. And when I show you the transfers, you probably won't recognize them. They're from Prima, redesigned by Prima. They're called Buds and Blossoms, I think is what they're called. And they're old. I've had them around my studio for a long time, but they reminded me of that rooster in the way that the ones I'm going to use are basically just line drawings, and they're black and they're very muted. Not all of them are, and you're going to see that, but the ones I'm choosing from this particular transfer set are very much like that rooster, where they're just sort of black and white and very muted tones of line art. But before I do that, I am going to paint that mold the same color as my picture, and that is that dried sage again. So the picture and the cutting board are going to go together very well. They're going to be sort of a little set, and I will definitely display them together at our next show. We have our next show September 12th through the 14th, so we have just a couple more weeks really to get ready. And so everything that I've been doing here on YouTube is in preparation for my show. So if you get tired of looking at all the stuff that I'm making, all the artwork that I'm, putting on things, my own artwork, I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. We have to get ready for our shows, and that requires making a lot of inventory. I'm just choosing graphics from these few pages of this Prima transfer to sort of match the rooster that I put on that cutting board. So those are the ones I'm choosing. I'm choosing the more muted ones. I'm not using the purpley ones or the ones that are big and colorful. Just choosing the more muted ones. By this time I've lost my favorite transfer tool. I don't know where I put it, so I had to pick a reject one from somewhere. And the reason I say that is I don't like those pink ones there that look like the spatula, because they are super flimsy. Like if you give them too much elbow grease, they might just snap in half. I've done that before. I don't paint the bottom of this picture, but I do come back in and sand the paint off the bottom, if that helps you. I could have painted the bottom, but when something is sort of rusty and crusty like that, I sort of like to leave it so somebody knows that, this is an upcycled project. I didn't start off with a brand new picture. And I definitely, did the work. I definitely made the improvements. I hope it's an improvement. I don't really know. This started out as a kind of a charcoal gray color that was very nondescript, and somebody had definitely painted it before me. But like me, they hadn't painted the bottom because that's kind of old and rusty crusty. I thought about adding some patina to this, but it didn't really fit with my motif at all. So while my patina paints are still out there, this didn't get that treatment. I like these little flowers that I found that are more filled in than the line art ones, because they sort of have the same tones that the rooster had. And you'll see that in my reveal photos at the end. You'll see how everything came together. If you live in my area, keep in mind that we do have 2 shows coming up, one in September and one in October. The first one will be at Lee Civic Center in Fort Myers, and the second one will be at the Strawberry Fields in Tampa. So super excited about those 2 shows. Everything I've been making and creating for the last few months is definitely going to these shows with us. So that'll be really exciting. I hope to see some of y'all down there. Some of you have already told me you're coming, so I'll be super excited to meet you. I didn't have any rhyme or reason for what I was doing here. I just chose some images that I liked, that I thought went well together. My last step on here was going to be to wax this handle with the Dixie Belle black wax. This is the Best Dang Wax in Black by Dixie Belle. Just using a paper towel to apply it and then a baby wipe to wipe it back. I just want it to stay in those braids. I don't want to change the color of the handle. I just want to bring out all those details. And I thought that keeping this simple was just the perfect way to go, since the artwork was simple. And then I do also take some of what's left on that paper towel and just go around the folded edges of the picture as well. I love the way this turns out. Sometimes I love to do just simple little projects that are definitely an upgrade, but I don't need to spend a lot of time doing these things, because the idea is to get it upcycled and get it to a show and sell it. The more time I spend, the less money I'm going to make on all of these projects. My last step here is to finish it with clear wax. What I have on hand right now is the Waverly clear wax, so that's what I'm using. I'm just using a chip brush to apply it, and when I let it sit there for a minute, then I'll wipe it back. My last project in this video is these darling little heart tins. I have been collecting these and hanging on to them. And normally, before I created this decoupage paper here, I would have put my pig and my chick on there. And if you know, that's one of my original art pieces. But I created this decoupage paper over the summer with a photograph that I took at a local hobby farm. And that's what I'm using to cover all of these little tin hearts. So I've printed them out in different sizes, I've decoupaged them down, and now I'm going over all of the edges with gold rub and buff. I start by just doing the edges, and I didn't know how I was going to handle the actual sides of the tins, but I decided that I'm just going to paint them all gold. They just look so rich and so warm and so fall-ish. We're going into our fall shows, and I feel like that warm gold rub and buff is just the perfect way to finish these. So I go around the edges like it's a gilded edge, and then I go around all the sides of the tins as well. And I love what happens there. And then I decide I'm going to add a beaded handle to each of these. I just drill 2 small holes on the top of each of the hearts, and then I put a wire in there. I twist the wire on the inside so that's not going to come out of that hole, and then I string my beads on and put the other end through the second hole and do the same thing. I twist that wire into like a corkscrew shape so that it won't come out, and I do that on every single one of these little heart tins. I do handle the small ones a little bit differently, and you'll see that at the end. They get less of a handle and just more of a hanger. But I still use the same wire, and I also use the beads. I really love the way those things turn out. I think they are just super pretty. I always have tons and tons of wood beads in my inventory. I buy them on clearance at Walmart at the end of Christmas, and so that's a great way to get beads if you're in the market for beads. And so many times they come in all the right colors. They come in black and, just all the colors that you would normally use. So that's me just closing up that wire so that it doesn't come out of the little hole that I drilled to hold the handle. I think I had 7 of these small ones, 2 middle-sized ones, 1 small one that I'm working on right there, and then a large one. These are one of those things that I'm only going to have these, as long as I have them. It'll take me a while to collect more tin hearts. So when these are gone, they'll be gone for a while, but these will go. I sold all the little piggy ones that I made. I had a similar collection of tin hearts, and I put my pig and my chick on them, and they sold rather quickly. So I do expect these ones to sell. And by the way, these cows are Highlands cows, and their names are Waffles and Ginger. They live on a small hobby farm about an hour south of me. So their owner was gracious enough to let me come down and spend a morning photographing them. And they have turned into my latest art pieces. I just love the way these turned out. I think they're so adorable. So sweet. And they seem to have really, the colors with the sunflowers and just the things that I was able to add to the photograph, they really make some really special fall art. So I really love the way they turned out. And anywhere you go, anywhere I can see that wire, I do come in with the gold rub and buff and just sort of turn it gold so that it doesn't clash, it doesn't stick out. But generally I was able to pull the wire tight enough so that you can't see it through the beads or anywhere else. This was such a cute little project. I did get a lot done this week for our show, and at the end of this video, after we're done with the projects, I'm going to show you just a couple other things that I worked on to get myself ready for our shows. It's that time of year. I'll be working around the clock. I'm putting my beads, I'm counting them out so I can finish all 7 of these little hearts. You see, I just added a little hanger. I didn't add a handle. Now I wanted to show you these bow vines that I worked on. I have done these in a video, so if you want to see the process, I will actually put the video in the end card. But these are some special pieces that I've worked on for our fall shows. I made these frames using some molds and then married 2 frames together. You can sort of see my process. Anyway, stay tuned to the very end of the video so you can see how all of today's projects turned out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of those things. Leave me a good comment. Let me know which project you like the most, and we will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.